Hey there, welcome back to Mac TV. And if you're new around here, well, my name is Mac and I'm a leadership and team building coach, but I work specifically with first time team managers. So, one of the most asked questions that I get is around employee accountability. In fact, if I had a penny for the amount of times that people ask me about this, well, I would have a lot of pennies. In any case, I realize that this is something that so many of you are struggling with. So, I wanted to introduce you, just very high level, to the framework that I teach my accelerator students with regards to holding team members accountable. So here's the thing that I want you to know when it comes to employee accountability. I want you to think of it much like a puzzle, and that you need basically four puzzle pieces in order to have team accountability or in order to hold employees accountable. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch things up a little bit on the channel. And what I'm going to do is take it to the digital whiteboard to really break this framework down for you in a very high level so that you kind of understand what I'm saying. Okay, so I'm going to switch modes here for a second. Let's do this.
All right, so let's do this thing. So I wanted to take it to the digital whiteboard because I really wanted you to visualize these puzzle pieces as I'm talking about it. So here I've gone ahead and got set up the board for you so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So the four puzzle pieces or the framework that you need to follow when it comes to holding team members accountable is exactly what you see here. So you need clarity, you need expectations, implications, and commitment. Those are the four things that you absolutely, I should say, need to have in order to hold your team members accountable and in order to create an accountability culture within your team. So let's dive into each one. And let's start with clarity, of course. So, with clarity, you already know because you've been with me, you already know that I'm constantly preaching the power of clarity and how important it is for you to have role clarity in order to be effective. Because let me tell you, without it, you're going to be ineffective in more ways than one. I promise you that you'll be so ineffective. So it's really important that you have, like I said, role clarity as well as departmental clarity. Now, there are a variety of ways that you can achieve this clarity that I'm talking about. But essentially, all I'm saying is that you need to be 100% clear all the time on at least three things. And here are the three things that I think it's important when it comes to being clear. So you want to know, oops, that's the wrong piece of the puzzle that I dragged up there. So you want to know where you are now, where you're going, and why you're even heading in that direction in the first place. You need to be able to understand that clearly in order to distill that down to your team clearly. You know what I mean? You need to be able to answer without any doubts in your head. Where are you now? Where are you going? And why are you heading in that direction in the first place? And if you are lacking or if you're not able to answer those three questions like this, then that means you got to go back to the drawing board and get yourself some clarity in terms of your role as well as the departmental objectives, because that's extremely important. Okay, so let's move on to the second piece here. My whiteboard's a little bit messy, so you'll have to excuse me. So let me just clean this up here. So the second piece is expectations. And this part of the framework is just all about setting clear expectations for your team members, right? So obviously, clarity is about you having clarity on the expectations for you, and expectations is being able to set clear expectations for your team members. So what I mean by that, and I'm going to pull this up here, is that you need to be able to articulate clearly for the team what everyone must do in order to achieve the set goals that you have for the department, what the results are that you're trying to achieve, and what the responsibilities are for each and every team member. Those things have to be clearly articulated for every single team member, and they have to be crystal clear on it. Because here's the deal, when your team is not 100% clear on the goals that you're expecting of them, or maybe the behavior that you expect on them, then there is no indicator to hold them accountable to. There's no indicator for them. And as a result, you're going to see these symptoms here that I wrote down for you. So you're going to see team members failing to ask questions about projects or deadlines. You're going to see team members taking extra time just to complete really simple things, or team members working on way too many projects all at once before finishing one prior to the other because they are just not prioritizing. They don't understand what's important, so they're doing all sorts of things just trying to figure it out. So these are kind of the symptoms of a team that does not have clear expectations, and that usually stems from a manager not having given them clear expectations. And so for you, when it comes to this, you want to make sure that, your team is always clear on what's going on. And of course, expectation setting comes in a variety of flavors, right? It falls into a couple of buckets. So there's the team expectations, there's behavioral expectations, and then there's individual expectations. So the expectations that you have for your individual team member, depending on their role and their responsibilities. And this needs to be communicated, guys, over and over again, like on a consistent basis, in order for your team to run effectively. Okay, so that is the second piece of the puzzle when it comes to expectations. Now, of course, there are a ton of strategies that you can use to make sure that you are setting crystal clear expectations, and that it's being received in the way that you want it to be received. And of course, if you want a deeper dive on this, then I highly suggest that you check out the details of my new Manager Accelerator program, because I teach my students frameworks within frameworks, and I even give them specific scripts that they can use so that they're always being clear when they're setting expectations, because this is extremely important stuff. Okay, so the third piece of the puzzle is implications. So implications, guys, is all about just helping team members to recognize, I'm going to pull this down, to recognize that there are consequences or there is an impact to what they do or don't do. And I feel as though this is the piece that a lot of us managers kind of stop at or fail at. Like maybe we get the expectation setting okay, but the implication piece we often forget, or we don't do a good job at clearly articulating this for our team members. The truth is, like, if you don't tell people what's at stake, then they won't know, and then they just won't do what you ask. In fact, let me pop off here and tell you a little story that I think will really round this out for you. Hold on a second.
So let me give you an example of what I mean by this. So a couple of months ago, I got on a call with a manager who was seeking out leadership development training through the new Manager Accelerator program. Typically, I like to talk to people ahead of time just so I can get to know them a little bit and determine if, based on their goals, if the accelerator would be a good fit for them. And so, I was talking to her and I asked her, hey, so what made you seek out, leadership development? Talk to me a little bit about why you want this training. And she said, well, my manager put me on a performance improvement plan. And so this is what prompted me, sending in an application. And I mean, that wasn't surprising to me. I've obviously heard that in the past, but here's the telling part. She said, but you know what? I don't know if I really need this, because I feel as though my manager put me on this performance improvement plan just to scare me into some sort of action. But I think she's bluffing. That is so telling. Clearly, her manager did not do a good enough job of articulating the consequences of her not getting her butt in gear and actually doing what she needed to do as a manager. Clearly, her manager did not do that. Because if it were me, like with my managers, I'm telling you, if you're on a performance improvement plan, you know every step of the way that if you are not improving, you're out of here. And I mean business, because you're messing with the business. Like, let's be real. And so the fact that she honestly believed that, like I said, is telling. And I think that is a trap that a lot of managers fall into. They don't clearly articulate from the very beginning the implications of people's actions. And somewhere along the line, even though this manager did do her due diligence of putting her on a performance improvement plan, somewhere along the line in her other actions, she showed that she doesn't follow through on her commitment somewhere. Right. And so this manager who was on the performance improvement plan got the idea that, hey, in other cases, my manager hasn't followed through. So why should I think she's going to follow through at this point? See what I mean? So let's get back to the digital whiteboard here for a second, and we'll conclude this.
So again, I know in this, situation, I was talking about a fellow manager, but honestly, the same is true for you. If you don't tell people what's at stake, and then on top of it, if in other instances you haven't followed through on what you said you were going to do, then they're going to get the feeling that you're just not serious. And we don't want that, right? You're setting expectations for a reason. So when it comes to implications, let me pull this up here. Again, always remember, people need to be aware of what's at stake in a positive and in a negative way. They need to know. Clearly articulate to them the consequences of their actions. That's why I put this here for you. Clearly articulate to them the consequences of their actions. Don't let them leave a conversation with you without knowing what the consequences, good and bad, are. Okay, so the final piece of the puzzle is commitment. And I think oftentimes this is another, I think, area I think where managers often fail when it comes to holding team members accountable. Just because you said to somebody that they had to do something, it doesn't mean that they're going to do it. Like, that's just not synonymous. That doesn't always happen. And failing to get their commitment, like in the conversation or whatever, is a really good recipe for them coming back to you and saying, well, I didn't know, or I didn't clearly understand, which is why I'm saying that in that conversation, you better get their commitment. Get their commitment by asking them whether or not they understood. And also the other like piece of that is making sure that you're committed to the outcome. Like, make sure that you're providing the resource that you say that you're going to provide to them. Make sure that you're following up with them to make sure that they're doing what they say they will do. This is your way of saying, yeah, I'm also committed to what I'm asking you to do. This is the final piece, and it's really, really critical.
So, guys, those are the four, puzzle pieces that you really need in order to be able to hold your team accountable. Now, if you want obviously specifics in terms of how you can do this and the things that you can say, like I said earlier, you can always check out the details for the new Manager Accelerator program. Get your application in for the next cohort because, in there I teach very specific strategies. And obviously, I give my people like scripts and outlines that they can use so that they know exactly what to say so that it is effective. So I will link all the information for that in the description box below. Anyways, I hope you found this video to be enjoyable and to be valuable. And if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe so that you don't miss out on further content that I share on this platform. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. Do not forget to keep smiling, and I'll see you in the next one.